Los Angeles shimmered under a prism of flashing cameras as Justin Timberlake and Jessica Biel emerged onto the red carpet like a perfect Hollywood couple. Chains of reporters and photographers clamored for their attention, shouting their names. Together, they moved in sync, their smiles polished, their postures poised. Yet beneath the glamour, something flickered, a subtle distance in Jessica's eyes, a fleeting hesitation in Justin's expression, as if each were playing a part rather than living a moment together. Moments later, after the applause had died down, they slipped backstage. Jessica's heart pounded when she noticed Justin standing too close to Emily, the costume assistant whose laugh seemed to linger in his mind long after her shift ended. Their conversation was pleasant, about lighting and wardrobe tweaks, but Justin's gaze drifted repeatedly, measuring Emily's silhouette through the dim glow of the corridor. Jessica watched from a few feet away. An instinct whispered in her ear that this glance was different, charged, secretive. The premiere wrapped, yet the invisible tension between them survived. Over dinner, Justin animatedly described his excitement for the new single, quoting his producer's praise and the studio's latest feedback. Jessica forced a smile and sipped her champagne, but every anecdote about the recording studio felt rehearsed, like a script he was determined to sell rather than a story he wanted to share with her. As he gestured, his hand briefly touched Emily's name on his phone. She had sent a late-night text, full of emojis and playful teasing. That night, Jessica lay awake in their Beverly Hills home, the city lights painting shifting patterns across the ceiling. She wondered when she had become a spectator in their marriage. She replayed Justin's distracted chuckles and muted excitement. The memory of his genuine grin, once reserved only for her, felt distant, as though it belonged to someone else. In the quiet darkness, she whispered questions to the empty room, searching for answers she feared she might not want to hear. The next morning, Justin kissed her cheek and rushed to the studio. He promised to be home early, but as hours slipped by, she found herself hovering by the front door, checking her phone for messages. Each minute stretched like an eternity. When the clock struck 8, she dialed his number. It went to voicemail. She hesitated, her breath catching as she left a short, tremulous message. "Can you call me when you get this?" Hours later, he finally arrived, his face unusually solemn. Instead of greeting her with a warm embrace, he apologized for staying late, blaming a last-minute mix tweak and an urgent call from the label. Jessica studied his features, the set of his jaw, the crease between his brows, and wondered whether he was hiding more than just work calls. She nodded, letting the apology slide, but felt a cold knot of doubt tighten in her chest. That evening, she found a discarded napkin on the car seat. It bore a lipstick stain and a hastily written note. "Moonlight meeting, 8:30. Her pulse pounded as she read it. The note was unsigned, but she knew whose handwriting it resembled. Carefully, she slipped it into her purse and pretended ignorance when Justin asked about her day. Behind her calm tone, her mind raced. Was this the proof she feared, or merely an accidental scrap from someone else's trash? Over the following days, small cracks began to show. Justin's rehearsals for his world tour demanded ever longer hours. Jessica attended quietly, applauding from the wings, but the spark between them felt muted. During sound checks, his laughter sounded hollow without her to share the joke. When he returned her messages, his replies were curt, often sent from a number she didn't recognize. She confronted him once, her voice trembling. "Who is this?" He claimed it was a new engineer. She wanted to believe him, but her instinct screamed otherwise. As part 1 draws to a close, the perfect facade they present to the world grows more fragile with each passing day. Jessica drifts through opulent photo shoots and charity galas, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. Justin pours himself into a whirlwind of work, his creativity tinged with distraction. Somewhere between the glare of spotlights and the hush of velvet curtains, the memory of former happiness fades into shadows, setting the stage for revelations that will shatter illusions and force them both to choose between secrecy and truth. The days that followed Jessica's discovery of the lipstick stain note unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance, Justin leading the steps and Jessica forced to follow in silence. Each morning, he kissed her cheek with the same practiced warmth, but slipped away before she could respond. By late afternoon, his phone would buzz in his pocket with messages from an unnamed number, and he'd excuse himself to the studio, promising to return soon. The promises, once sacred, now echoed hollowly in their sprawling home. In the recording studio, Justin was surrounded by colleagues and assistants who worshipped his talent. They nodded along to every idea, adjusted sound levels at his command, and kept their own counsel when Jessica arrived unannounced. On the rare occasion she asked after the mysterious late-night calls, she was met with a polite but unmistakable wall of solidarity. "We're all on a tight deadline," his producer would say, eyes flicking to the door. "Justin needs full focus right now." Even the assistant who manned the front desk asked no questions when Jessica, nervous smile in place, inquired about Justin's whereabouts. At home, Jessica tried to fill the silence with her own routines: yoga at sunrise, long walks in the garden with the rescue dog they adopted last year, weekend brunch invites from close friends. Yet every phone call that came and went without Justin's name on the caller ID felt like another door slamming shut. Their conversations, once filled with laughter and shared dreams, now revolved around trivialities: what to order for dinner, which designer to call. Any attempt to steer the talk toward themselves, toward their relationship, was deflected with a practiced distraction. "I'm really excited about the new tour visuals," he'd say, eyes already drifting toward his laptop. One evening, while Justin was away at a late-night mixing session, Jessica received a text from an unknown number. "Miss me?" accompanied by a winking emoji. Her pulse accelerated. She stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the delete button. Her mind replayed the corridor encounter with Emily, the costume assistant whose laughter had seemed to echo in Justin's memories. Could Emily be the sender? Or was there someone else entirely orchestrating this conspiracy of silence? The next morning, Jessica decided to confront the issue head-on. Over cold coffee in the marble kitchen, she laid a single question on the table. "Who is texting you at night?" Justin's response was immediate and stilted. He looked up from his phone, the blue glow reflecting in his eyes. "No one, Jess. It's just work updates. You know how labels like to ping us at odd hours." He smiled, but the movement failed to reach his eyes. She tried again to press. "Am I that easy to dismiss?" But he'd already turned away, retreating into the familiar sanctuary of his home office. That afternoon, Jessica drove to the studio, determined to catch Justin between sessions. At the reception desk, she was greeted by sympathetic smiles and a silence so thick she could feel it pressing against her eardrums. She sent a group text to Justin's team. "Can someone confirm if he's still here? I need to pick him up." No one replied. Minutes ticked by, and her growing anxiety made her pace the waiting area. Finally, an assistant approached in hushed tones. He finished for the night, but he left early. Said something came up. No explanation, no apology for the secrecy. That night, Jessica stayed up waiting. At 11:17 p.m., her phone lit up with a single message from an unrecognized number. "See you tomorrow at sunrise." She pressed her palm to her mouth, stifling a sob. Sunrise? By the beach? Over the waves? Moonlight meeting? 8:30? The note from the car seat. Now this. She realized she was caught in a web she hadn't spun, powerless to see its edges. Every clue was deliberately cryptic. Every attempt at clarity stonewalled by a cadre of silent enablers surrounding Justin. On the third day of this growing impasse, Jessica found herself seated in a plush chair at a high-end cafe, scrolling through her phone's call log for hours. She traced missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize, each one terminated before a connection could form. She glanced around at strangers sipping flat whites and tapping on laptops, envying their ordinary lives. When her phone finally rang, the caller ID listed Studio HR. Her heart leapt. She answered, "Jessica? This is Maria. I'm really sorry if I've caused any confusion." Maria hesitated. "Justin asked me to tell you he's tied up with a last-minute collaboration. He hopes you understand." Jessica closed her eyes against the cafe's bright lights. The carefully constructed narrative had fractured just enough to let her see the cracks beneath. She raised her head and said, "I understand that you don't want me involved. But I'm his wife. I deserve honesty." Maria's breath caught on the other end. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The line went dead. Driving home, Jessica realized how deeply this conspiracy of silence had taken root. It wasn't just Justin who refused to share the truth. It was everyone around him. The label, the producers, even the assistants seemed complicit, united in preserving an illusion that held her at arm's length. As dusk settled over Los Angeles, she parked by the ocean and watched the waves crash against the shore. The morning sun poured golden light through the blinds as Jessica Biel sat at her vanity, her reflection rippling with questions. The lipstick-stained note and the midnight text had driven her to the edge of trust, and now she knew she couldn't wait for Justin to explain himself. She would confront the source of her doubts directly. She slipped into a simple black dress and drove to the edge of Long Beach, heart pounding in rhythm with the engine's hum. The bungalow stood isolated against the Pacific, its windows shuttered and the front gate slightly ajar. Jessica's breath hitched as she pushed the gate open and walked across the weather-worn wooden deck. At the center of the living room, a single candle flickered on a low table. Soft instrumental music drifted through the doorway, mingling with the scent of sea salt. "Jessica?" A tentative voice broke the hush. Emily, the costume assistant, emerged from the shadows, her eyes wide with alarm. She clutched a travel-worn bag to her chest, as though it could shield her from accusations. I didn't expect you here." Jessica kept her expression calm but firm. "Emily, I found messages on Justin's phone. I know about the secret meetings." Emily's body trembled. She set her bag down and exhaled slowly. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. "It started innocently." The confession spilled out in a rush. Late-night conversations about creative inspiration, a mutual fascination with vintage film scores, an exchange of photos lit by moonlight. Emily's words painted a picture of collaboration that blurred into emotional intimacy. "I thought I was helping him, supporting his vision," she said, voice thick with regret. "But somewhere along the way, I crossed a line." Jessica's chest tightened. She fought the urge to crumble. "Did he ask for me to stay out of it? Did he tell you to lie?" Emily shook her head vehemently. "Number. He never said that. He was conflicted. He wanted to protect what you two had." Tears glistened on her cheeks. "But he kept it from you, and I'm so sorry." As Emily spoke, Jessica realized the conspiracy of silence extended beyond work demands. Justin had built a private world where his fears and desires could roam unsupervised, yet he still loved her enough to shield her from it. The realization stung sharper than any betrayal. "I need answers, Emily," Jessica said softly. "I need to know what he's been hiding. I want to hear it from him." Emily nodded, stepping back into the shadowed hallway. "He's in the studio downtown. He's mixing the single you heard about." Armed with this revelation, Jessica drove back into the city, the coastal breeze still clinging to her hair. At the studio entrance, she bypassed reception's usual courtesy. She texted Justin 3 simple words: "Meet me now." Inside, the sterile control room was bathed in cool blue light. Justin's silhouette bowed over the mixing console, headphones framing his face like a halo. When his phone buzzed, he removed one ear cup and read her message. His eyes widened, guilt and relief flickering across his features. He rose without a word and led her to a small vocal booth. The door clicked shut behind them, insulating them from the hum of equipment. Jessica's voice was steady but fierce. "Why didn't you tell me?" Justin's throat tightened. He ran a hand through his hair, as though trying to smooth away the tangled emotions. "Because I was ashamed, I thought, if I told you, you'd walk away." "Walk away?" Jessica echoed. "Justin, you didn't give me the chance to decide. You chose secrecy over honesty." Tears glimmered in her eyes as the dam of hurt broke open. "I'm not just a spectator in your life. I'm your wife." He stepped closer, voice raw. "I know, and I'm sorry. But when I was with Emily, collaborating on ideas under the moonlight, I felt something I couldn't name. I never intended for it to become real. I was afraid of losing both of you." Silence settled between them. Then, carefully, Jessica slid a hand to his arm. "We lost each other already," she said quietly. "But maybe this is how we find our way back, by unmasking the parts we've been too scared to show." In that moment, the walls they'd built around their relationship trembled. The illusions of perfection shattered like glass on the studio floor. Justin reached out, tracing her cheek with the back of his hand. "I love you," he murmured. "I've been a coward." Jessica nodded, pressing her forehead to his. As the first cracks of reconciliation formed, the world outside the booth faded into distant noise. They had stepped into the aftermath of revelation, where pain and forgiveness coexisted. The journey ahead would demand honesty, vulnerability, and time. But having unveiled the illusions, they finally stood on the threshold of truth. The dawn light found them in their sunlit kitchen, mismatched mugs warming between them like truce flags. Justin's acoustic guitar lay on a stool, its polished body still echoing their laughter from late-night jam sessions. Yet today, it felt like a relic of a happier time. Across from him, Jessica absently traced the jagged crack in her ceramic mug's rim, the perfect metaphor for everything fractured between them. Outside, psalms of mourning songbirds seemed too cheerful, as though mocking the heaviness she felt. He cleared his throat, picking up his laptop. "I finished the demo I promised," he said, voice low and tentative, like a boy unsure of his welcome home. Jessica nodded, anticipation and trepidation weaving through her chest. She remembered the first time he played that guitar for her, under cypress trees in Tennessee. The same chords had bound their hearts. Now, she braced herself for chords tinged with pain. He pressed play. The room's air shifted as fragile arpeggios shimmered through the speakers, bouncing off the walls in soft echo. A cello's mournful line entered, weaving between the piano's purity and a subtle heartbeat of percussion. Then Justin's voice emerged, intimate and raw, weaving a confession into the melody. Lyrics unfolded like pages from his hidden journal. "In the hush of night, I lost the light. Chasing echoes not my own, but your song remains within my heart, the only note I've ever known." Each line etched the truth he'd carried alone, yet the music carried him back to vulnerability he feared. The arrangement, deliberately sparse, left room for honesty to breathe, allowing every syllable to resonate in the hush that followed. Jessica closed her eyes, tears threading down her cheeks. The melody bled his remorse into the open air. Every verse was a step toward candid vulnerability. When the final note faded, the studio's hush pressed in. Justin's gaze held hers, unguarded and hopeful. "That's everything I didn't say," he murmured. "I know it may not be enough, but it's all I could give." Her throat tightened with emotion. She inhaled slowly, recalling how their wedding march had felt like a promise that life's melody would play forever for two. Now that promise lay in fragments, waiting to be restored. She reached across the table and took his hand. "Thank you," she whispered, "for your honesty." They marked the moment with a shared silence, comforting and unsettling all at once. Then slowly, they began to unpack each lyric and chord choice, tracing the emotional path he'd navigated: fear, shame, regret, and longing. With every admission, the distance between them narrowed, replaced by fragile threads of understanding. Yet in Jessica's mind lingered the excruciating question: could she embrace this new song as truth, or would its echoes forever remind her of betrayal? After hours of conversation, they came to a crossroads. Jessica spoke quietly. "I can't promise to forget, but I choose to try, to rebuild, to write a new chapter in our harmony. Will you meet me halfway?" Justin's eyes glistened with relief. "I will," he vowed, "every day if it means we'll find each other again." They agreed on a structured plan: weekly therapy sessions to develop trust, nightly check-ins to share unfiltered emotions, and dedicated music nights to collaborate creatively. Music, they decided, would be their language of repair, each melody rewoven with intention. They would complete this demo as a duet, literal proof that broken pieces could resonate together in a renewed composition. That evening, they gathered in the cozy home office, walls lined with mementos, concert tickets from early dates, postcards from Tennessee, snapshots of laughter. Justin placed fresh blank pages on the music stand, gently guiding Jessica's fingertips onto the stave. "Shall we write the bridge?" he asked. Their first line spoke of resilience. "From shattered chords, we build again. With open hearts, our voices blend. In the notes we choose to play, love finds a new refrain." Each word felt like a pact, not only between melody and harmony, but between two souls forging trust anew. Days melted into weeks of shared vulnerability, tears, embraces, and raw songwriting sessions. In therapy, they unearthed long-buried fears. She admitted the terror of betrayal. He confessed the dread of losing himself. Each revelation was a dissonant note turned into harmony by understanding. Slowly, they realign their rhythm, each step guided by the combined beat of honesty and hope. A month later, in a sun-dappled living room filled with close friends and family, they unveiled their new song. Justin's guitar and Jessica's gentle backing vocals blended seamlessly, the audience holding breath as the final chorus soared. When the last chord rang out, silence gave way to heartfelt applause. In that moment, surrounded by warmth and acceptance, they realized their choice, to stay and heal, had composed the most beautiful melody of all.